September 16 is the day that 13 board members of the Jamaica Football Federation will decide who will replace the late Captain Harris Burrell as the head of the federation. One of two persons hoping to convince the voters is former CASAFA President Stuart Stevenson. According to Stevenson, he was encouraged to run for office by people in the sport.
The evening that the news of captain's death came down, my phones, both of them, rang non-stop with people suggesting that, boy, it is time for you to consider, now it is days of vacuum. And what I learned in the weeks following his death was that people viewed the replacement of captain as a role that was a critical role in the development of the game, because they view the federation not just as a football institution and developing the game, but as a national institution where the leader of the associate federation would actually be like Jamaica's ambassador abroad whenever he went abroad.
Stevenson left CASAFA on January 28 this year to take up his full-time law practice, but his return left many believing he was tempted by the consideration of the FIFA to pay all its association presidents.
The consideration of whatever FIFA is doing or what is proposed is not a factor for me. Every election that I've run before, I've always been very confident. This one is no different. Each election is different. This one is the one with the least amount of votes. So there's not a margin for much error, if you want to call it that. All the other elections I've had, you have a number of voters involved. This one is just 13. And so your strategy on these 13 has to be specific man to man. What is it that each delegate in the federation, each parish president who are the 13 voters, what is it that each of them would like to see happen in the football, and how do they think it should be done? And so you have to appeal to each person.
Then there was the small matter of him pledging his and CASAFA's support for opponent Michael Ricketts when he was in office.
No, this is politics, and there can never be an issue if you have a view and you are supporting a person today and the landscape has changed. What has changed? My reconsideration of the decision whether I should enter or not. That changes the landscape. And in that regard, even although I was the first man that said to Mike from March that I think he would be a man I could support for president, the fact of the matter, I met with Mike before I entered the race.
The turnaround led to one of CASAFA's vice presidents, Carvel Stewart, going public with his disapproval.
The principle is that for us to have changed the undertaking from one person to another, there should have been an agreement on it. To go out and then, I think, on his own, nominates another person for whom we had not yet determined a majority position from CASAFA, then I figured that was, I did characterize it as being corrupt in the action that was taken.
Carv and I have been together for years. We've worked together as a team. But there is never a difficulty with us sharing these differences of opinion. I do have a difficulty with differences. On this one, Carvel and I see it differently. That's respected, and there's not an issue. What I can say is that it is unusual for us in CASAFA to go public. It is not something that we do, and I think that particular situation was, in my view, disappointing. I leave it there.
Stevenson was nominated by 4 members. That's half of what nominated Ricketts.
It's not a strange thing in football that people will nominate and don't vote. Because last time I know Mike got 8 nominations, he got 6 votes. And we feel confidently that there are 2 or 3 who have nominated, who we can persuade by the message that we are carrying, that what we think we can bring to the federation at this time. We feel that the skills that are needed now are not just to take the seat around and be the chairman of the board, but there needs a little extra. Some special negotiation skills to look at the debts that the federation have and how we deal with it. Certainly in relation to attracting more sponsors to the national cause.
But how will his practice affect his time as JFF president should he get the nod?
People have a view that the president must be involved in everything. I don't run businesses and the state agencies that I have run. I've chaired the company's office advisory board. I've chaired the Jamaica International Free Zone board. The president is also the chairman of the federation. But the federation has and will have professional people to run it. I don't expect to be in and out of the federation on a daily basis, chasing behind anybody. That is not how you run a professional and a modern organization. You put professional people in place, you have a CEO, he's responsible for getting the work done, and you are there to be his oversight and to provide the policy directives through the board. I don't intend to be traveling up and down with Jamaica's team. It is unnecessary and it is a waste of resources. You have the General Secretary who is there, the CEO. You have the appointed officials with the team. I think the President has to travel when he has to travel. So if you have your FIFA International Conference annually in Zurich, fine. Or if you have your CONCACAF annual meeting in Miami, fine. I don't intend to. I don't have I am not short of seeing the world and seeing travel. So I'm not going to be, that's not going to be something that I'm going to be spending a lot of time on. I will travel when we have to. And I would want to see and ensure that the other leaders around the table, your vice presidents, your parish presidents, get a chance to sit on those commissions abroad and develop their own experience and exposure at the level. This is not going to be a president who is going to hog the show and be on every committee. No. I am going to want to give the other members around the board exposure. As I said, I've seen the world, so I will go only where I have to go and when necessary.
But history is against him if one should go by the path of the last two presidents who came through the Clarendon Football Association.
I don't know if history is against you. History might be for me that it is no time for a former president of CASAFA to be president. But to me, what we are now is we have done our time in leading CASAFA. We are running as a person who has had a track record of performance in football, humbly if I may say so, who knows the game, has played the game, and I think has the special skills at this time to lead an organization that has accomplished a fair amount. And of course, the football has established a very loyal and enthusiastic Reggae Boys fan base. So there are things that the Federation has done, and I'm sure there are even other plans that they have on record that have not yet been revealed. So that is taken, that there are things that the Federation and the board has accomplished. However, there is more to be done.
But should he find his way to the chair, Stevenson is promising more for the parish associations.
The Federation is structured with the board, but every one of those board members, the elected persons, have to go back to their parishes to undertake the work of the Federation. In all other boards that you have, public and private sector, the people on the board don't work in the organization. In the football, it is the people on the board who make policy, who have to go back and implement it. So the parish associations need financial support, especially given the fact that sponsorship for most of them is a limited commodity. The need for parish associations to get an annual financial support from the Federation to undertake the Federation's work in the parish is one column in terms of policy. The other thing that I had spoken about is the fact that the elected representatives on the board, and there are 13 parish presidents, 3 VP and the president, they already get a stipend or an allowance to offset their expenses. That is minuscule. And I think it is time for us to do something more meaningful, because the truth is, when these volunteers come to for football, they have to attend the board meeting of the JFF, attend all the functions held by the JFF. They are traveling from Westmoreland, St. Thomas, Portland, all over the island to come to the board meetings. You need to give them something that will undertake and cover their expenses in doing so. Has anybody ever wondered how these guys or ladies undertake those expenses? It's coming out of their pockets. And they have to find different means to underwrite the cost of their transport, their cars, their whatever. They're on the road, giving up their private time when they should probably be at work. How is that? Who is paying for that? It's being done by these 17 elected officers out of the goodness of their thing. I think we need to pass there. And the stipend that they now get in recognition of that service, I think should be reviewed. I heard it was recently increased from something like 5,000 to 10,000. And that is wholly inadequate, given the work that these volunteers are doing.
Still to come, Don Anderson rules out any squabble this season, and Cavalier says no to the old guards and yes to the youths.